They told me I'd work in their mansion until the day I died. They took my passport, controlled every minute of my life, and treated me like I was invisible. But what they didn't know, I had been recording everything. Every slur, every threat, every illegal thing they did. And when my lawyer walked into that dining room with a folder full of evidence, I watched the color drain from their faces. My name is Kesha, and this is the story of how I went from being a trapped housemaid to the woman who owned the very house I used to clean. Before I tell you exactly what happened, I'd love to know which country are you watching this from? Drop your country name in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories about justice and standing up for yourself, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me bring you more empowering stories like this one. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The plane touched down in Los Angeles on a Tuesday morning, and I remember thinking the sky looked different here, bigger somehow, like it held more promises than the one back home in Manila. My name is Kesha, and I was 24 years old, clutching a worn suitcase and a contract that promised me $800 a month to work as a housemaid for a wealthy American family. $800. That was more than my father made in 3 months at the factory. That was my mother's medical bills paid. That was my little brother's school tuition secured. That was the price of my freedom, though I didn't know it yet. Mrs. Elizabeth Whitmore picked me up herself from the airport. I should have seen that as the first red flag. Millionaires don't usually do their own pickup runs, but I was too overwhelmed by everything. The massive SUV that smelled like leather and expensive perfume, the palm trees lining the highways, the mansions that grew larger and larger as we drove into the hills. "You'll love it here, Kesha," Mrs. Whitmore said, her voice honey-sweet as she glanced at me through the rearview mirror. She was in her mid-50s, with that preserved kind of beauty that comes from regular Botox and personal trainers. Her blonde hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful. "You'll have your own room, 3 meals a day, and Sundays off." I smiled and nodded, my English still shaky. "Thank you, ma'am. I work very hard for you." "I'm sure you will, dear." The Whitmore mansion sat at the end of a private road, hidden behind iron gates and manicured hedges. It was the kind of house I'd only seen in movies. 3 stories of white stone with columns like a Greek temple and windows that sparkled in the afternoon sun. A fountain bubbled in the circular driveway. Rose gardens stretched out on both sides. It looked like a dream. It was a cage. Mrs. Whitmore led me through the back entrance, of course, not the front door, and my excitement started cracking around the edges. The kitchen was enormous, all marble countertops and stainless steel appliances, but cold. Everything felt cold. "This is where you'll spend most of your time," she said, her heels clicking on the tile floor. "Breakfast at 7 sharp. Mr. Whitmore likes his eggs over easy, no runny yolks. I take a green smoothie with kale, spinach, ginger, and exactly 1 tablespoon of almond butter. Our daughter Vivian eats whatever she wants whenever she wants it, so you need to be flexible." I nodded, trying to memorize everything. "You'll clean the entire main floor daily. That's the living room, dining room, kitchen, Mr. Whitmore's study, and the entertainment room. The bedrooms on Tuesdays and Fridays, laundry on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, grocery shopping on Thursdays, pool maintenance every morning before 7 a.m. My head spun. "And Sunday off?" Mrs. Whitmore's smile thinned. "We'll see how well you perform first. Now, I'll need your passport and return ticket for safekeeping." "My passport?" "Standard procedure, dear. We hold on to it so nothing gets lost or stolen. You're in a new country. You need to be careful. We're protecting you." She held out her perfectly manicured hand, still smiling that smile that didn't reach her eyes. I should have said no. I should have run right then, back down that driveway, past those iron gates, and never looked back. But I thought about my mother's hospital bed, my father's tired eyes, my little brother's report card with straight A's. I reached into my bag and handed her my passport. The moment her fingers closed around that little blue book, something changed in her face. The mask slipped for a second, and I saw what was underneath. Satisfaction, control, ownership. "Good girl," she said, and walked away,
taking my only proof of identity with her.
My room was in the basement, next to the laundry machines. They called it a room, but it was more like a converted storage closet, barely large enough for a twin bed, a small dresser, and nothing else. No window, a single light bulb hung from the ceiling. The walls were concrete and always slightly damp. That first night, I cried myself to sleep on sheets that smelled like bleach. The wake-up call came at 5:30 a.m. Mrs. Whitmore's voice crackled through an intercom speaker I hadn't even noticed in my room. "Kesha, time to start. Pool first, then breakfast prep." I stumbled out of bed, still jet-lagged, and pulled on the gray uniform dress she'd left for me. Shapeless, scratchy, 2 sizes too big. No mirror in my room to check how I looked. By 6 a.m., I was skimming leaves from the Olympic-sized pool in the backyard, my hands already raw from the cold water. By 6:45, I was in the kitchen, cracking eggs and kneading almond butter into a smoothie while Mrs. Whitmore stood over me criticizing every move. "That's too much ginger. Start over." I dumped the smoothie and started again. "Those eggs look greasy. Do you even know how to cook?" I bit my tongue and made new eggs. Mr. Richard Whitmore appeared at 7 o'clock exactly, hidden behind a newspaper, grunting when I placed his breakfast in front of him. He never looked at me, not once. I was furniture to him. Their daughter Vivian drifted in around 8:30, still in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess. She was 19, pretty in that careless way rich girls are, and meme in that casual way that comes from never hearing the word no. "Ugh, what is this?" She poked at the fruit bowl I'd prepared. "Fresh fruit, miss," I said quietly. "I wanted a croissant. Do you not understand English?" She laughed, looking at her mother. "Mom, where did you find this one?" Mrs. Whitmore sipped her smoothie. "She's still learning, darling. Kesha, croissants are in the freezer. Heat one for Miss Vivian." "Yes, ma'am." As I turned to the freezer, Vivian deliberately knocked over her orange juice. The glass shattered on the marble floor, juice spreading everywhere. "Oops," she said, not even looking up from her phone. "Clean that up." I grabbed the mop with shaking hands. The days blurred together. 16-hour shifts. No breaks except to eat standing up in the kitchen, always ready if they called. No phone. They said I didn't need one. No internet access. No friends. No family contact. The Sundays off never materialized. There was always something. A dinner party to prepare for, extra cleaning, unexpected guests. By the end of the first month, I understood the truth. I wasn't an employee. I was a prisoner. It was a Thursday afternoon, 3 months in, when Mrs. Whitmore found me sitting on the back steps for 5 minutes, catching my breath after scrubbing all 4 bathrooms. She stood over me, her shadow blocking the sun. "Is something wrong, Kesha? Are you tired?" "No, ma'am. Just resting 1 minute." She crouched down, her face close to mine, her perfume overwhelming. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost kind, which somehow made the words more terrifying. "You need to understand something, dear. You have nowhere to go. No passport, no money, no friends in this country. You signed a contract. You'll work here until you die, if that's what it takes to repay your debt to us." My blood turned to ice. She smiled, patted my cheek like I was a child, and walked away. I sat there, on those steps, the California sun beating down on me, and something inside me broke. But something else, something stronger, was born. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I smiled. Because right then, I made myself a promise. I would get out of here. And when I did, they would regret every single moment they made me feel small. I just had to figure out how.
They say you become invisible when you're a servant. It's true. People say things in front of you they'd never say to each other because you're not really a person to them. You're wallpaper. You're background noise. You are the hands that pour the wine and clear the plates, but never the ears that hear or the mind that remembers. That was their first mistake. 4 months into my captivity, because that's what it was, let's be honest, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed that Mr. Whitmore had 2 sets of books in his study, one leather-bound set on the shelf for show, and another locked in his desk drawer that he only opened late at night when he thought everyone was asleep. But I was always awake, always cleaning somewhere, always listening. "Richard, did you file the offshore transfers?" Mrs. Whitmore asked one evening as I served their dinner. "Done. The Cayman account is set up. The IRS will never trace it." They laughed. I kept my face blank, my hands steady as I poured more wine. Tax evasion. I didn't know all the details yet, but I knew that's what it was called. I noticed how they treated their guests. At their dinner parties, I watched Mrs. Whitmore's smile and charm wealthy couples, then mock them viciously the moment they left. "Did you see her dress? Looked like a curtain from Kmart," she'd sneer, and Vivian would cackle. But worse than the gossip was how Mr. Whitmore treated the construction workers who came to build their new pool house. He refused to pay them the agreed amount, threatened to call immigration when they protested, even though they had papers, and eventually sent them away with half their wages. "What are they going to do? Sue me?" he said to Mrs. Whitmore that night. "They're just desperate immigrants." I was standing right there, refilling their water glasses. To them, I was just another desperate immigrant. But I was watching. I was learning. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when I discovered something in Vivian's bathroom trash. She'd thrown away her old iPhone, cracked screen, but it still worked. Rich people throw away things that poor people would treasure. I stared at that phone for a full minute, my heart hammering. Then I wrapped it in a towel and smuggled it down to my basement room. That night, after 11 p.m., when the house finally went silent, I powered it on. The screen flickered to life, cracks spiderwebbing across it like broken promises. I connected to their Wi-Fi, password taped right under the router, because rich people never think anyone would dare use their internet. My hands shook as I typed, "Labor Rights Lawyer, Los Angeles." For the first time in 4 months, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. But I needed more than hope. I needed proof. The phone became my secret weapon. I started documenting everything. When Mrs. Whitmore screamed at me that I was worthless and should be grateful we even feed you, I recorded it. When Mr. Whitmore discussed his tax schemes on phone calls, I stood outside his study door and captured every word. When they left documents on the counter, bank statements, construction contracts, threatening emails to workers, I photographed them with trembling fingers. I created a hidden folder labeled Weather on the phone. Inside were 53 voice recordings, 147 photographs, and a detailed journal I typed out every night, documenting dates, times, and incidents. The house's gardener, Miguel, became my unexpected ally. He was in his 60s, from Guatemala, and had worked for the Whitmores for 7 years. One morning, while I was watering the roses, he spoke to me quietly in Spanish, a language he'd learned and I'd picked up in the Philippines. "You're not the first, you know?" he said, not looking at me, just trimming hedges. My blood ran cold. "What?" "There was a girl before you, Maria, from El Salvador. She tried to run away." He paused, his hands still. "They called the police, told them she stole jewelry. She was deported." "Did she steal it?" "No, but they planted a bracelet in her bag." "Who do you think the police believed?" I felt sick. "Where is she now?" "I don't know. She disappeared into the system." Finally, he looked at me, his weathered face sad. "Be careful, mija. They're dangerous when threatened." But I was already past the point of careful. I was building a case. Through the stolen phone, I found attorney Patricia Chen, a labor rights lawyer who specialized in human trafficking cases. Her website said, "Free consultation, we fight for the voiceless." I was voiceless, but I was about to scream.
My hands shook as I typed out the email. My name is Kesha. I am being held against my will. I have evidence. Please help me. I hit send at 2:37 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, sitting on my basement floor, the washing machine humming beside me like a lullaby of rebellion. 3 hours later, she responded. I believe you. We'll get you out. Don't delete anything. I cried then, but this time they were tears of something I hadn't felt in months. They were tears of power.
Attorney Patricia Chen's first message to me was simple. Thursday, 2 p.m., Whole Foods on Beverly. Pretend you're shopping. I'll find you. My stomach twisted into knots. Thursday was grocery day, the one time I was allowed to leave the mansion, though always with Mrs. Whitmore's detailed list and a strict 2-hour limit. She tracked the time, checked every receipt, counted every penny of change. But this Thursday would be different. I barely slept Wednesday night. I rehearsed every possible scenario in my head. What if Mrs. Whitmore decided to come with me? What if she changed grocery day? What if this was all a trap and Attorney Chen was somehow working with them? Thursday morning arrived with heavy clouds, rare for Los Angeles. Mrs. Whitmore was in one of her moods, criticizing everything, from the coffee temperature to the way I'd folded the towels. The grocery list is on the counter, she snapped, barely looking up from her tablet. 2 hours, Kesha, not a minute more. And get the organic spinach this time, not that regular garbage you brought last week. Yes, ma'am. I kept my voice steady, submissive, the way she liked it. She tossed me the keys to her old Mercedes, the car they let the help use. Don't scratch it, and bring me the receipt, every single item. The drive to Whole Foods took 23 minutes. I had 1 hour and 37 minutes of freedom. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. Inside the store, I grabbed a shopping cart and tried to look normal, casual, just another maid running errands. But my heart was a drum solo in my chest. I pushed the cart toward the produce section, checking my phone every few seconds. The organic kale looks good today. I jumped. A woman stood beside me. Mid-40s, wearing jeans and a blazer, her black hair pulled into a neat ponytail. She had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Attorney Chen? I whispered. Patricia. Just Patricia. She smiled and picked up a bunch of kale, examining it like we were old friends discussing vegetables. Keep shopping. Talk quietly. We have about 10 minutes before security might notice we're just standing here. I grabbed some spinach with shaking hands. Thank you for meeting me. I didn't know who else to... You did exactly the right thing. Patricia, move to the tomatoes, and I followed. I've reviewed everything you sent. Kesha, what they're doing to you is called human trafficking. It's a federal crime. The passport confiscation alone is enough to prosecute. But they're so powerful. They have lawyers, money. And you have evidence. 53 recordings? That's unprecedented. I've been doing this for 15 years. Most victims have nothing but their word against their traffickers. You've built a case that could put them away. Hope fluttered in my chest. So what do I do? You keep doing exactly what you're doing. Document everything. But we need more. She pulled out her phone, pretending to check a shopping list. I need you to record the next time they confiscate wages or threaten you. I need photos of your living conditions, that basement room you described. I need proof of the hours you work. They watch me constantly. Use the times they don't. Early morning, late night. Can you get into Mr. Whitmore's study? My pulse quickened. Maybe. He leaves it unlocked sometimes when he's playing golf on Sunday mornings. Those financial documents you photographed, I need more. Bank statements, wire transfer records, anything that shows the offshore accounts. Patricia selected some bell peppers, her movements casual, but her eyes were fierce with purpose. I'm also going to need you to write down everything, every threat, every slur, every time they denied you food or rest. Dates, times, witnesses. The gardener, Miguel, he knows things.
there was another girl before me. Patricia's jaw tightened. Maria Gonzalez. I know, I'd tried to help her, but by the time I found out, she'd already been deported. The Whitmores are very good at making people disappear. She looked directly at me then. That's not going to happen to you, I promise. Tears stung my eyes. Why are you helping me? I can't pay you. You'll pay me when we win, and we will win. Patricia handed me a business card, then immediately took it back. Actually, keep my number hidden in that phone. The card could be found. Text me every night at 11 p.m. Just an emoji, anything, so I know you're safe. If you don't text, I'm calling the police. Okay. One more thing. Patricia moved closer, her voice dropping even lower. In about 3 weeks, the Whitmores are hosting a dinner party, correct? I nodded. How did you? I have my sources. That's when we make our move. I'll arrive with police escort, serve them papers, and get you out of there. But I need these 3 weeks to build an airtight case. Can you hold on for 3 more weeks? 3 weeks felt like 3 years, but I'd already survived 4 months in hell. I can do it. Patricia squeezed my shoulder briefly, a touch of human kindness that nearly broke me. You're stronger than you know, Kesha. Now finish your shopping, and remember, you're not alone anymore. She disappeared down the cereal aisle, and I stood there clutching a bunch of organic spinach, my vision blurred with tears. The drive back to the mansion felt different. The same roads, the same car, the same iron gates that closed behind me like a prison. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing for war. That evening, as I served dinner to the Whitmores, Mrs. Whitmore looked at me with her usual disdain. You took 2 hours and 11 minutes, Kesha. That's unacceptable. I kept my eyes down, humble, defeated. I'm sorry, ma'am. You'll work an extra hour tonight to make up for it. Yes, ma'am. But inside, I was smiling, because in 3 weeks, that extra hour wouldn't matter. In 3 weeks, I'd be free. And in 3 weeks, their whole world would collapse.
The night of the dinner party arrived like destiny, wrapped in silk tablecloths and polished silver. For 3 weeks, I'd been the perfect servant. Invisible, obedient, silent. I'd documented everything. Photos of my basement room with its single light bulb and damp walls. Recordings of Mrs. Whitmore screaming that I was lucky they didn't throw me on the street. Bank statements I'd photographed in Mr. Whitmore's study showing $2.3 million in offshore accounts. A detailed log of every 16-hour day, every skipped meal, every threat. Patricia had everything. Tonight, she'd use it. The guests began arriving at 7. 12 wealthy couples, business partners, socialites, a city councilman and his wife. The kind of people who mattered in the Whitmores' world. The kind of people whose opinions could destroy a reputation. Perfect witnesses. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, serving champagne, offering hors d'oeuvres, clearing plates. Mrs. Whitmore had outdone herself with the menu. Filet mignon, truffle risotto, chocolate soufflé. She wanted to impress. She had no idea what kind of impression this night would leave. At 8:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. Kesha! Mrs. Whitmore's voice cut through the dinner conversation. Answer that. If it's someone selling something, get rid of them. Yes, ma'am. My hands trembled as I walked to the front door, the door I'd never been allowed to use except to answer it for others. Through the frosted glass, I could see 2 figures. I opened the door. Attorney Patricia Chen stood there in a sharp navy suit, holding a leather briefcase. Beside her were 2 police officers in full uniform. Good evening, Patricia said clearly, her voice carrying into the dining room. I'm attorney Patricia Chen. I'm here to see Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore.
regarding a lawsuit filed on behalf of my client, Kesha Magdalena Torres. The dining room went silent. I could hear forks being set down on china. Mrs. Whitmore appeared in the hallway, her face flushed with wine and fury. "What is the meaning of this? We're hosting a dinner party. How dare you?"
How dare I? Patricia stepped inside without invitation, the police officers following. How dare you traffic a human being? How dare you confiscate her passport? How dare you hold her in involuntary servitude for 7 months? Mr. Whitmore rushed into the hallway, his face purple. This is outrageous. Officer, remove these people from my property immediately. The older police officer, a woman with gray hair and steady eyes, shook her head. Sir, we're here on official business. You need to hear what the attorney has to say. By now, all 12 guests had gathered in the hallway, wine glasses in hand, mouths open. I stood against the wall, my heart threatening to explode from my chest. Patricia opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I have here 53 voice recordings documenting verbal abuse, threats, and admission of illegal activity. 147 photographs showing evidence of human trafficking, labor violations, and financial crimes. Testimony from your gardener, Miguel Reyes, and bank records proving you've hidden over $2 million in offshore accounts to evade taxes. She handed the folder to the police officer, then turned to the crowd of guests. Ladies and gentlemen, you're witnessing the exposure of 2 people who held a young woman prisoner in this house for 7 months, who took her passport, who forced her to work 16-hour days with no pay, no rest, and no freedom, who told her, and I quote, "You'll work here until you die." Mrs. Whitmore's face went from red to white. She clutched her pearls. Actually clutched her pearls like some cartoon villain and looked at me with pure venom. "You little bitch. After everything we did for you?" "Ma'am," the police officer interrupted, "I'd stop talking if I were you." But Mr. Whitmore couldn't help himself. "You have no proof. She's lying. She's just an ungrateful immigrant trying to—" "I have proof." I finally spoke, my voice quiet but steady. I pulled out the phone from my uniform pocket, the one they never knew I had. Every word. Every threat. Everything. The councilman's wife gasped. Someone else murmured, "Oh my God." Vivian burst into tears. "Mom, I told you this would happen. I told you." "Shut up, Vivian," Mrs. Whitmore shrieked. The police officer stepped forward. "Mr. Richard Whitmore, you're under arrest for human trafficking and labor violations. You have the right to remain silent." As the handcuffs clicked around Mr. Whitmore's wrists, I watched Mrs. Whitmore collapse onto the marble floor, her designer dress pooling around her, mascara streaming down her face. The guests stood frozen, their perfect evening shattered. And I walked toward the front door. The door I'd cleaned 1,000 times, but never walked through as a free woman. Patricia held it open for me. "Let's go home, Kesha." I stepped into the night air, and for the first time in 7 months, I could breathe.
The trial lasted 4 months, but it felt like 4 minutes compared to the 7 months I had spent in that basement. I testified for 6 hours straight. I didn't cry, not once. I looked Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore directly in their eyes and told the jury everything. Every threat, every slur, every moment they made me feel less than human. Other victims came forward. 3 women who'd worked for the Whitmores over the past decade. Maria Gonzalez, who they'd deported, testified via video call from El Salvador. Miguel took the stand and confirmed everything. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict came on a rainy Tuesday morning. Guilty on all counts. Human trafficking, labor violations, wage theft, tax evasion, passport confiscation. Mr. Whitmore got 8 years in federal prison. Mrs. Whitmore got 6. Their assets were seized to pay restitution. My settlement? $850,000 in damages. And the mansion,
The very house where I'd been imprisoned was awarded to me as part of the seized assets. I'll never forget the look on Mrs. Whitmore's face when the judge read that part. The color drained from her skin, and she actually whispered, "No, not the house." But yes, the house. 6 months after the trial, I stood in the marble foyer where I'd once scrubbed floors on my hands and knees. But this time, I was wearing jeans and a comfortable sweater. My hair was loose around my shoulders, and I was smiling. The mansion wasn't a prison anymore. I'd converted it into Casa de Esperanza, House of Hope, a shelter and resource center for trafficked domestic workers. That basement room where I'd cried myself to sleep, now it was an office where we helped women file legal claims. The dining room where the Whitmores had humiliated me, a classroom where we taught English and job skills. I enrolled in college, studying social work and law. Patricia became my mentor and friend. Miguel became the facility manager, finally getting paid what he deserved. 2 years after my liberation, I received a letter. The handwriting was shaky, uncertain. Dear Kesha, this is Vivian. I know you have no reason to read this, but I need to say I'm sorry. I was cruel. I was complicit. I've spent these 2 years in therapy working on myself. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that watching you stand up to my parents changed my life. You showed me what courage looks like. Thank you. V. I held that letter for a long time. Forgiveness is complicated, but healing is possible. Today, Casa de Esperanza has helped 63 women escape trafficking situations, 63 women who found their voices again. And it all started because I refused to stay silent. They told me I'd work there until I died. They were wrong. I worked there until I won. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, if you or someone you know is experiencing labor trafficking, you're not alone. There are people who will fight for you. Drop up, I'll wake up in the comments if you believe in standing up for what's right. Until next time, keep fighting for justice.